You can think of the Octatrack as a powerful remix platform. Mostly we see it used as a performance sampler, and as such it's extremely versatile, but I'm going to show a few methods I've developed that I use in my recordings and that I think are slightly unusual and I hope useful for you. I use static machines for this method, and on each track I put a relatively long sample. They may be 4, 8 or 16 bars long, and sometimes longer, sometimes 32 bars. They're stems, really. I cook them up in Logic Pro, but any DAW will do. I put a lot of care into the production of the stems. Each one has a stereo stage, and EQ and some effects are already applied and part of the audio recording. Now, the foundation of this method is Octatrack scenes. I'm assuming here that you know how to use scenes and scene parameter locks. I went through the basics of this in an earlier tutorial, so please have a look at that if you're new to this. First of all, we'll hear a couple of tracks on an empty scene. I've got a drum loop on track 2 and a space drone pad sort of thing on track 6. This was done in Omnisphere, and which is my favourite software synthesizer. Let's just mute the drums. There's already some Octatrack delay on the pad. You can hear when I press stop, the delay tail there is quite long. Now, I'm going to be fading between scenes 1 and 9. Now, scene 1, which I've muted. No, I've muted the drums. Scene 1 is just the drums, and let's select track 2 where the drums are. And effect 1, we have the filter applied to that. You can hear it's very heavily filtered. The scene locks are, the width is at 0. And the Q or resonance is quite high. So it's very heavily filtered in that scene. Let's fade to scene 9 now. And you can see the fade happening on this little icon in the corner there. And in comes the pad. And oh, it's going a bit weird. Let's go to track 6, and in scene 9, let's see what the locks are. There's a bit of filtering I've applied on FX1 to this track overall, but in the LFO page you can see with the scene lock I've introduced a bit of depth to LFO3. Now, LFO3 is set to pitch, and there's a fairly slow speed with the triangle wave, and this is sweeping the pitch of the sample up and down. Let's just mute track 2, the drums, so you can hear it. Now, LFO 1 and 2 are set to the filter base and the filter width, and if I go back to this page, there is a bit of depth applied to those, and again a fairly small speed. And this opens and closes the filter width and base in this sort of quite slow and fairly unpredictable sort of way. And with this scene, the pitch is also being swept up and down. Now, in other scenes, this lock on LFO3 is cancelled, so the sample just plays back in the usual way, and you get this nice harmonic wash but we'll hear a bit of that later. Let the filter open a little bit. There we are, and fade back to scene 1. Now you see what's happening with the delay tail. I'm on track 6, and let's have the effects 2 page, and you can see I've whacked the feedback not quite to 127 because that would be a perpetual repeats. I've opened up the filters and put the send up to maximum as well. Let's just hear that again. You can get some quite nice transitions using the fader between scenes. Now there's an important thing to note here. What I've done in the amp page in scene 1 is I've locked the volume to -64. What I've not done is use the level knob to the right of the screen. I could mute the track in that scene, but you can hear that it cuts off the delay tail. I'll just mute the track using the other method. I'll just undo that scene lock. And if I fade from scene 9 to scene 1, you can hear the difference. It just cuts it off rather abruptly. But if I reverse what I just did, put the volume in the amp page back to -64, there. That's the delay tail that you're hearing. So let's just go back to unmuting track 2. So you can get some quite nice things going on as you crossfade between the scenes. There's another thing I must show you with scene 1, and if I go into the machine and press function edit, you can see the sample there is playing from left to right. Now if I crossfade to scene 9, you can see it slow down, and if I take it far enough over, it'll start going backwards. And there, when it hits the trig again, it'll start playing back from the right hand end. And you can see that when we're right over in scene 9, it's actually playing backwards. And I can reverse that process, take it back, and it starts going forwards again. Now, this is achieved by, in the playback page, am I in the right track? It's actually scene 9, I'm pressing the wrong scene button. If I hold down scene B, which gives you the locks for scene 9, you can see the rate is at -64. The default is at plus 63, which is the default if you like. It's what you get when you create a new project. All the samples will play forwards by default, and the rate is set to 64. But you see that if I set that to -64, it interpolates when I fade from one scene to the other. And that's just with 2 tracks, of course. If I unmute the other tracks and play through some of the other scene transitions, Now this is scene 2, and you can hear that I've taken the LFO depth of LFO 3, set it back to the default. I've taken the scene lock off, so the LFO is now no longer sweeping the pitch of the pad up and down, and you can hear those nice harmonies. On the final recording, I added in the Electron Analog 4 into a through machine on track 8. You can hear the complete recording on the SoundCloud link below the video. Well, thanks for watching, everyone.